Welcome to the Hill of Justice Live. I'm here with obviously my big brother, former Sheriff Victor Hill. And obviously, we have Mike back with us. So if you can hear us, please go ahead and hit chat and so on and so forth. And let us know that you can hear us. We're going to start in about a minute. I think we got a minute before 6. Guys, y'all doing good?
Doing well,
Yes, sir.
doing
Doing great.
well.
Doing great, man.
We might get our favorite cat coming in here because it won't let me catch it. So as that turns out, we are now recording. I guess we have enough people here with us. So without further ado, brother, why don't you go ahead and kick this off?
Sure, I'll be happy to. We got a very special guest today. Latravian is an ex-officer from the Clayton County Sheriff's Office. He worked in the jail, and he was actually stabbed in the head while working as an officer. So we're happy to have him. And let me just say this before we allow him to introduce himself. Like I said earlier in a little commercial that I put out, why is it important that we cover these issues in the jail? They say that the average person will never have contact with law enforcement unless it is a traffic ticket. And that's pretty much true. There's only a certain population of the country that has constant contact with law enforcement. That's because of what they're into. And then, of course, they end up being frequent flyers in the jail and everything like that. So a lot of people aren't necessarily concerned with inmates or conditions of the jail. But here's what I want people to consider as we cover this and other jails in the metro area and across the country. Anyone can end up in a county jail. Anyone can end up in a county jail. I remember several professional people. I know a doctor that ended up in a county jail because she forgot to pay a ticket. Hell, we had a local politician, a commissioner that forgot to pay a ticket, but she was given special treatment, not allowed to go into the jail in Henry County. So she didn't have to worry about the type of stuff. But if you don't know anybody and you're not politically connected who can stop you from going inside the jail and just fingerprint you and let you go, anyone can be in a jail. Maybe there's a glitch in the system. The insurance is not showing when you actually have insurance. And if you go to the Clayton County Jail or some of the Metro County jails, your life is in danger. One person was actually there on a traffic ticket and came out in a body bag. So it's very, very important that the county jail is safe. Also, we want to remember that the county jail is excuse my pronunciation, microcosm of the county, meaning or of society. So I can tell a lot about a county by how the jail is ran. Because if the leaders can't control the jail, then how can they control criminals in the street? Because the jail is a controlled environment. So with that being said, we're honored to have Latravian here. Travian, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. Thanks for coming on, and uh, and we're happy to have you.
Thank you, sir. First and foremost, I want to say, greatly appreciate you for having me. It means a lot. Share my experiences. Um, I began my employment with the Clayton County Sheriff's Office in July of 2023. So that means, unfortunately, I was not able to be under Sheriff Hill's administration. Um, Around December of 2023, there was an incident where I was assaulted by a detainee or inmate in House Unit 8. This particular day, I was assigned to House Unit 8, but House Unit 6, for those that don't know, House Unit 6 and 8 are across from each other. I had to conduct head count in House Unit 6 that morning because there was only a specialist in the control for House Unit 6. So I went across the hall, conducted head count in House Unit 6, and came back to House Unit 8 that morning. The previous officer from the previous shift, she was supposed to conduct head count in House Unit 8. When I got back, she started head count. So I went around 8-1 at this time did not have any phones in their pod. So this particular morning was a Monday. You have to have your store put in by 12 a.m. that Monday morning. This is around 8:30. The guys are upset because no one has taken them to use the phone to put in their store. Go into the pod. Guys was like, "Hey, Book, man, excuse my language. Like, man, we fuck with you, man. We This ain't nothing personal, but man, we need to use the phone, man. We need to use the phone. We ain't been able to use the phone. People keep telling us we're gonna use the phone. So I was like, all right, y'all gonna have to wait, man. Head count being conducted right now. Y'all know y'all can't do nothing without head count being cleared. Man, we tired of hearing that, yada yada. So they come rushing out. It was a lot of them that came out. I was able to manage to put most of them back up. It was about 3 guys that was still out. One of the guys that was stabbed me, of course. At this time, so I can say, looking back at the situation, I think it was an ego thing. I've never been the type of person to call non-compliance or for assistance, so I do feel like that I could have handled the situation better. So in that situation, I was just like, "Hey, man, look, y'all gonna have to go back up, or y'all gonna get sprayed." This particular inmate, he just was, man, he was under the influence. So that's what it seemed to me. He was just like, "Oh man, I don't give a fuck about none of that shit," jumping all around and everything. And then next thing I
Under the
know, he pulled
influence
the
of
shit.
what? You say you thought he was under the influence. What do you think he was under the influence of?
I can't say it's so much. It's so much drugs inside of the facility. I can't say. Even just from doing shakedowns, we found powdery substances that has been confirmed to be like meth or like cocaine. It's a lot of marijuana. They have this drug called K2, which is a synthetic marijuana. Typically, is paper laced with chemicals that they typically smoke. So it could have been a mixture of those. Um, it's hard to detect, so it's probably one of those things. I think that's the primary drug that's in the facility, the K2. But he pulled a shank. For those that don't know what a shank is, it's a jail made knife. Pulled it out of his boxers. I'm sorry. Let me back up. When he was jumping around, he turned towards me. I sprayed him with my OC spray. Now, this is why I say I feel like the guy was under the influence of drugs. This guy is um, extremely asthmatic, from my understanding. He's extremely asthmatic. OC did nothing. It it just did nothing. Pulled the shank out after I sprayed him. Kind of got me like towards the top back of my head. So I picked him up. As I had him in the air, he got the back of my head some more. I slammed him down, got on top of him, started striking him, tell him to drop the shank, let it go. He didn't want to let it go, so I flipped him over, put him in a rear chokehold, wrapped my legs around him, and just was just squeezing, tell him to let it go, drop the shank. Man, it took him a minute for him to actually give it up. Actually, the other guy that was out, he was the one. He was like, "Hey, man, just let it go, man. Let it go. Just drop it." So he finally let it go. Once he let it go, I just grabbed his arms, held it across his chest like this with my legs wrapped around him until our SRT unit, which is what Walker was a part of, Wolfpack, they came and responded. At the time, I didn't really know that I was stabbed. I had a ski mask on also at the time, so when I got up, that's when I felt the blood rushing down the back of my neck. And I pulled the ski mask off, and I was like, "Hey, I'm hit. I'm stabbed." And so we went from there.
All right. It sounds like you know some jujitsu because you described a leg wrap and everything like that. Is that the case?
Somewhat, yes, sir. Self taught.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. All right. So here's what I want to ask you. And also I want to bring out a point. One thing I'm impressed with the fact that you said you could have handled it better. That you thought you should have maybe called for backup sooner, and that's true. But let me say this though. It's always good to look at what you could do better, and that's very admirable. But it's kind of like people that we tell them, hey, you shouldn't have left your keys in a car, and you shouldn't have left a weapon in a car. It's true they shouldn't have, but one thing I don't want us to get away from that we see a lot of society and leadership doing. Nobody got no business stealing your car anyway,
Right.
right? I mean, to come down on the victim of a crime because, well, you should have locked the door or whatever. If you go home and you forget to lock your front door, okay, what are we telling people? We're saying, well, you wouldn't have got raped or robbed if you had locked your front door. First of all, you don't know that. They could have kicked the door in anyway. I don't care if the front door is open. Ain't nobody got no business coming there raping, robbing, and murdering you. So it's interesting how we've got people, especially in leadership positions, and that's why the crime is so high now, because we got a lot of silly prosecutors, a lot of silly people, heads of law enforcement, and folks that make judgment, but they tend to rule more on the side of criminals. So this person shouldn't have had a shank,
Right.
and he had no business being non-compliant, and he definitely had no business trying to take your life with a shank. Because anytime someone stabs you with a shank, they're essentially trying to take your life. Because
Right.
anytime you pierce a person's body, so I just want to say that now it is commendable. I'm sure tactically, uh, on your next assignment or whatever, you can say, okay, I'll handle this different. But I just want to make sure we put that for the record. This dude had no business having a shank. He had no business stabbing you, and for someone to pass judgment and say, well, you should have called for backup, who knows? Maybe all of y'all would have got stabbed.
Right.
So the real question here is, how did the jail get that far out of control? So with that being said, okay, I see that's the stab in the back of the head. Fortunately, uh, it wasn't life threatening, and it wasn't able to make penetration. What happened after the stabbing? Tell us about that. Once they realized you were stabbed, once y'all found the shank, how did y'all find the shank?
So after I slammed him, it was already so after I slammed him, he had in his hand. This was another thing that kind of upset me. One of the inmates that was out there was telling him to let it go. I did. I was like, hey man, once he let it go, I was like, hey, get that and get away from me. He grabbed it and he stood by where the multi-purpose room was. The investigators, I guess, then wasn't too keen on me telling the inmate to grab a shank, but I told them if I felt like he was gonna be assaultive, he would have been striking me while I was choking him out, because he was just begging me, like, hey man, let my man go, man. He can't breathe. He can't breathe. Let him go. So I was just worried about the guy that I knew was stabbing me. So the inmate that was out, I'm not gonna say the guy's name, but he ended up just grabbing the shank and just he stood by the multi-purpose room. So when they came and responded, they were just telling him to get down, and he threw it up, and then he just got on the ground or whatever.
Okay. Now, that brings up another interesting thing. And Jerome, I want you and Mike to weigh in on this. But again, it's a very interesting situation to be in. You're there. The only person to help you is an inmate. I'm not making any excuses. I'm not saying you should tell an inmate to get a weapon or not. We saw a video where an inmate actually came and helped Mike when he was
Right.
assaulted. But let me tell you what's interesting about that, and what you're saying. You know, what a lot of what we're seeing, that's wrong with the Clayton County Jail and other jails in the metro area and across the country is a lot of it on the leader of the jail. Yes, we can't take that away. It's horrible leadership at the Clayton County Jail. We don't negate that. But I think what has happened too, because all of the fault is not the guy that's there now. And let me tell you why I say this. I think when you have people who Monday quarterback back officers, and they charge officers, and they tell officers how to do their job and what they can do and what they shouldn't do, but they've never ran a jail a day in their life. They've never been in a situation like that. Let me give you a good example. Chokeholds are now basically outlawed here in Georgia. First of all, we saw a spike in aggravated assaults when I was sheriff. And part of the reason why I thought maybe the domestic violence was going up, but actually what they did was they upgraded choking to a felony. So, and there are times when that probably is correct, if a person's trying to choke a significant other and they're trying to kill them, but then sometimes people end up grabbing people behind their neck. But the way it is in Georgia right now, you put your hand around somebody's neck, you're going to get aggravated assault, which is a felony. Well, based on that, basically we pretty much told police officers they can't use choking under any condition whatsoever. So basically what we've done is thrown the baby out with the bathwater. Should we choke people to death? Of course not. But I think the people who came up with that law are not really using their
Yeah.
common sense and thinking, because first of all, you got all these kids out here training in jujitsu, so they're training how to choke everybody out, and they think nothing of choking somebody out, including an officer. So if our officers aren't trained on how to defend against chokes, that puts them at a disadvantage. And if they're not able to use chokes in self-defense, because sometimes that is probably one of the most effective methods if done correctly and not done to harm anyone. But you take that tool away from officers, criminals don't care if they choke you out or not. But you tell an officer if he chokes somebody, he may well be charged with aggravated assault. So
Right.
you got a man that tried to kill you with a shank, but they're more worried about the fact that you had to choke him in order to get the shank off of him. He's using deadly force on you, but you're going to be criticized for using force on him. Uh, that's a that's an issue. And
Right.
then we
Yeah.
have all of these prosecutors and other people. They can tell you what you shouldn't do or can't do or whatever and make it up as they go, but they have no idea what to tell you to do. And I can't think of anybody, even like involved in my case. I would love to see the two prosecutors in my case, both I can't even remember their names, and they both look like something from Revenge of the Nerds. I'd like to come see them run the Clayton County Jail since they know how to do it better, or see Tasha Mosley come run the Clayton County Jail, because since they got all this expertise on when to do something and when not to do something and whatever, can they do it? So I think it's very, very interesting that the folks were worried about what level, the fact that you use a chokehold to get the shank away from the guy, and the fact that you told him, "Hey, get it" or whatever. I find that very, very interesting, because it'd be interesting to see if they were in that same situation, or what would they have done, or would they even have survived the situation at all? Because they
Right.
probably don't even know how to wrap their legs around someone and put them in a position where they'd have to take to put the shank down. So
Right.
was your tactics perfect? No,
Yeah.
but could they
So,
have done it better, since they such experts and doing paperwork and stuff like that? I doubt it seriously. Let me let y'all talk. Go ahead, Jerome. Mike, go ahead.
When it comes down to, I'm not going to second guess anything that you did. You know, it's something a little bit what my brother was talking about with the knee jerk reaction to other landmark cases, and particularly excessive force cases. In New York, we saw Eric Gardner, um, unfortunately, with a Lucy, which was just one cigarette he was selling, and those officers choked him to death. And I believe and of course, everybody's seen the George Floyd situation.
Right.
The issue with these happens to be that, just like the taser, we know with the taser, when we apply that, and we're not to do that to elderly people, we're not to do that with people who are pregnant. um, when you do a chokehold, something that's been, outlawed for a lot of law enforcement jurisdictions, you know, there's a couple ways you could do it. You can, of course, you can go ahead and cut off the air to the trachea. You can go ahead and cut the blood supply from to the carotid, to go ahead and do that. Each carry those risks. So does a taser. But when you're in the heat of battle, there's really you really don't at times have your choice of weapon. You have to deal with what exists at that time. It just reminds me of the police academy, where everything is nice and pristine, and they put you through these scenarios. But when you're in the heat of battle, everything just goes out the window, and
Right.
that's my take on it.
And my take is, I think he did great. I was there when it happened, not on your shift, but I came in at 2 o'clock when it happened. Uh, I think he did great, especially for what you was working with. Those guys have been, or Parham, not Parham, Petway has been threatening the stab officers way before that. He was they had what, 4 or 5 guys in one section with what, 36 beds, and they were being allowed to run the facility. And every time they covered the camera, they were taken to go get a phone, and they was taken to go get an extra tray. So for what you were dealing with, I think you did perfect. And if I was boss, you'd have been, you know, taken care of. They also, you came back after that happened. You
Hmm.
didn't quit like officers do when and they may call them a B word. You came back the next day after your, I don't even know if you went on medical leave, but I know we saw you right back. You was courage. You were strong and tough. And just go back on leadership instead of putting this guy here on SRT, or promoting this guy doing something, showing care. I don't even know if they reached out to you. Uh, but I can't sit here and say that I work with you. I work there while I was in the jail. You you only had a few officers that ran the floor, or that got in the fight. And even the sheriff said himself, the acting sheriff now, if you never use your taser, if you never use your spray, and you never went hands on, you're not doing a good job. Something's wrong with you. you know. And when we was on shift, it was always they may refusing to do something. you ran your floor. So I give you that, and I think you did a great job here. And I was in a fight, but mine was hands, not a knife. I give you that for coming back straight after that happened, especially when the jail was still out of control. I don't even think we had the hole when this happened. I think the hole was created after this happened.
Right. And not to get too deep into it, one thing that probably needs to happen again is folks need to be given edge weapon defense training. We did do that while I was sheriff. I know they got away from it, so y'all didn't get it. But a knife is very hard to defend against, and probably the best thing to do with a knife is disengage or get away. So
Mm-hmm.
you're very, very fortunate, because even though you got a person in chokehold, he could have still reached back
I mean, you.
and stabbed you. So it worked out. Just not to criticize what you did. I think you did the best you could under the circumstances. But first of all, there shouldn't be edge weapons in a jail anyway.
Period.
If the jail is ran right, there should be no edge weapons in there, and no one should have to be worried about how to defend themselves against a knife. Because when an officer deals with a knife or edge weapon on the streets, they're taught to elevate to deadly force, which is a weapon, because it's virtually impossible. I don't care how much martial arts you know. There's no one I know of that can block and duck a knife. And probably the most dangerous person with a knife is an angry woman in an overhead position. The odds of you blocking that with this crazy stuff they teach in self defense is slim to none.
Mhm.
So, I just want to say that leadership. Let me tell you where the leadership becomes a problem, because it's something I had to monitor carefully when I was sheriff. I had some leaders that I had to get rid of as well too. I know one of the officers had an inmate grab his genitals and was crushing it, and he was striking the guy to get him off of it, and he ended up striking the guy in the head to get him off of it. Well, I had a guy that was overtraining, some weird name, I think Kessler's his name or whatever, and he wanted the guy fired because he said he struck him in a red zone, meaning, hey, you're not supposed to strike in the head. And I had to ask this idiot, I said, have you ever had somebody grab your balls and tried to crush it? Do you know how to get out of that? Which, of course, he did. And this dude never won a playground fight. So I had to intervene in that to make absolutely sure that this officer wasn't punished. Now, if this officer just went in a place and started striking him in the red zone, that's one thing. But you got witnesses there that this inmate actually had his hand on his genitals, squeezing it, and the officer was fighting to get away. And then if you got an idiot in command position that doesn't take all of that, or never been in a playground fight, so he don't understand it, then you create this type of environment and fear where officers are afraid to defend themselves. And then it causes the jail to get out of control. Well, I think a lot of that is what's going on now. So you're talking about having administrators who will Monday morning quarterback because they don't understand it, because they've never actually done any actual police work, or they just don't have logical thinking, like this captain I was talking about. And then when you go above and beyond that, you got DAs and prosecutors. Like, for
Right.
instance, Jerome, you brought up something interesting about the taser. You know, you're taught not to tase women, elderly people, but every now and then an officer will tase a guy that looks healthy,
Mhm.
and he will die. I mean, there was a guy that used to work at the sheriff's office. He's a bodybuilder. Unfortunately, he passed away from a heart condition, but he couldn't be tased in training because he had a bad heart, and he ended up dying from heart failure.
Mhm.
So let's say he was on the other side, as big and strong as this dude looked, a smaller officer may have tased him. And if they did, he may have well died. Well, we got such weird prosecutors out there, they could well get charged with murder. We had a situation like that. We just saw in Fulton County. They tased a guy. He ended up dying a day later. They were cleared by the GBI. Then the DA comes in, even though this happened 2, 3 years ago, and charged them all with murder. My understanding is that's still pending. So we're putting these guys in strange positions because you got commanders and you got people in the legal field that will use them as sacrificial lambs, and they're more on the side of the criminals than the officers. And then you get
Right.
this situation is out of control. Now, of course, we know there's a whole lot more issues going on at the Clayton County Jail besides just that. How the shanks are getting in, how the drugs are getting in. But I want people to understand the whole picture. Is it terrible leadership there? Yes, it is. But there's a whole lot more to this and why these jails are out of control. Not just in Clayton, but Fulton and other jails across the country. But y'all go ahead. I want to take up all of Mike's space. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think especially just speaking on the facts of DA. I know now she tried to start a program now where she was letting kids walk through, uh, to come see what she created with how they're acting now, and what will happen to them basically, when they go, which that has proven, it's shown that the kids more like that because if they're they're thugs or they used to violence, they can get everything they was getting on the streets in the jail. And you're not paying taxes. You're getting three free meals a day, and you can extort the next man for commissary. So that's what they created versus what we had, which was structure, order, and you couldn't do what you want to do.
Well, what she should be worried is if those kids don't get killed or stabbed while they're walking through on the tour.
Right.
So you're right. She
That's true.
did
That's
create the
true.
jail the way it is now, but is it safe for the kids? Or maybe she need to go spend the night in there.
True. True. And you never know, like you said, and this actually words of Levon Allen. You one asshole cop away. Everybody is one asshole cop away from being in jail or going into the jail. And that's true. And maybe that's what it takes. The minute she has to walk through and sit in intake for a traffic ticket for 48 hours, and then go in the cell with no working toilet, then she'll be at Chris Carr's office, asking for removal.
Right. And I think what people got to think about, and I think I remember the quote you talking about, but think about it. What if he goes to jail? As weak as he is, look what will happen to him. It was his wife that had a parking ticket and could have went to jail if it didn't have the connections. If a jail is ran like that. So I think people like him and people that run jails need to think about what if my wife or somebody else goes to the jail? Would I want them to be in this particular environment? And we know that answer is no, because none of his family members work in that jail. Why? Because it's unsafe. So he doesn't want them to get hurt. But then he puts young men like Latravian in there in a
Right.
bad situation that he can get hurt or
Right.
killed. So I think that's a good
And he
point.
can. And I mean, Huckleberg asked I see somebody asked that. One is did command reach out to you when the stabbing happened?
So I can say two captains reached out. It was two different situations. One captain was a female captain. I did not feel like the reaching out was sincere. It was the next day. It was more so of a, hey, Huckleberg, how you doing? I'm sorry this happened to you. When did they say you can come back?
Right.
Now the next captain, I can say him by name, Captain Grady, man. He was one of
Which
the
is a
ones that
true
I actually
legend.
felt like was sincere. Yeah, man, Huckleberg, man, I hate this happened to you. I always tell you how great of an officer you are, man. This you didn't deserve this. Hey, take as much time as you need to heal. Don't try to rush back to work because I know you're gonna try to come back to work. Take as much time. That was Captain Grady, whole spiel and everything. And like I said, I think he checked in on me like every day when because I was out about a week.
And
Um,
right. And
but yeah, he ended up checking in on me every day. But besides that, like sheriff, no, chief, any of the chiefs, no, major,
and
no.
I want to bring this point up. I want to bring this point up. When which rest in peace to Rich Homie Quan, but when Rich Homie Quan passed away, right here they had no affiliation to. We're gonna leave Vonka Allen. That's what I'm gonna call him now. That just pissed me off. So, when he passed away, no affiliation to him. He didn't donate to his campaign. He didn't post, "Hey, vote for Levonka Allen for sheriff." No affiliation to this guy. And your tax dollars, he used your people, your deputies that supposed to be working the road, getting DUI bust and drug bust off the highways and real criminals, not for real TV, but real criminals, DUIs and people that are killing each other inside this county. He used your deputies to go and motorcade Rich Homie Quan to the funeral home and to sit outside the funeral home and to sit outside the family's home, so that he can look good to who, because his family didn't ask for it. He didn't live in Clayton County, so but when his own folks are stabbed, when his own people is holding the line, and I can sit here and vouch to say this officer wasn't corrupt. I work, alongside this officer. When his folks is holding the line in the jail, we get no phone call. We get no no motorcade to the hospital. You know, we get none of that. And when my friend was hit in the face, I had to text the sheriff to get a response from him to deal with the situation. Not because I wanted him to call and talk to him, but because I wanted the inmate under control. He's, nothing happened to none of these, and I believe it or not, Petway wasn't even charged, but I'm not sure. I know he was facing a lengthy sentence anyway. But
Now he
I'm
was,
not
but
gonna
it
say
ran
something I'm not
concurrent.
sure on.
Was he charged for stabbing you?
He was, the sentencing was concurrent with the sentencing that, so he basically didn't get any extra time.
Okay,
Okay,
I
yeah. So I
got you.
wasn't
Okay,
I
well
wasn't for
that's a
sure.
little better than what I've been hearing because I've been hearing some people have gotten it. Well, we had a show with one guy. He stabbed several people, but they let those charges go just so he could leave the jail.
Right.
Wow.
Which is Matthew. And I see I see a comment here I want to talk about. This is kind of saying I just want to show the care of the staff here in the jail. You know, we had a major sergeant, which I think I can say her name now, is Sergeant Williams. We had a major sergeant there in the jail. It's tough. She checked on officers. She came to the floor. Your 8 hours, or 12 hours you there. She came to the floor every day, every hour on hour. She's the only one responsible to radio. She was there, right? She was down the behavior management unit. She was inmate had grabbed some pepper spray from one of our SRT officers and ran out. SRT officer retreated, which caused basically pushed the sergeant down the stairs. She was out of work for a long time, right? Real loyal to this place.
Yeah.
Held control. One of the a few females that hold control in the jail, and the inmate got released, right, with the guys that got released. And then he go on the news and say, hey, well, the reason this guy got released is because CPU8. I need my $14 million for CPU8. I need a new CPU8. This guy is it's not my fault. It's not my guy's fault. It's CPU8 is why he was released. But then he go back, and then a good loyal sergeant that was no write-ups, that stayed loyal, that came back after this injury, that even came back earlier. They got rid of her for something where that she was doing what the paper told them to do was to release the guy. But he got on the news and said that it was CPU8 is why he was released. But he went back and fired the sergeant that was a great sergeant, experienced sergeant, to make way for now a new stripper. So that's just to speak on the care of these officers, the good officers here at this jail, and why I got so out of control. Because you can be there 10 years, 15 years. You piss him off, he want to make a statement or a political line, he gonna fire you, even if it's contradicting himself. So I just saw that comment, so I want to speak on it.
Okay, okay.
I want to jump in there also. So fast forward into March of 24. I don't know if you remember when we had the meeting, the way he split us up in age groups. We had everyone for the sheriff's office
Yep.
had to go into like the court. Yeah. So at that time, so when I was out, I had exhausted all my sick and annual leave. As I said, I had begun my employment in June of 23. This happened in December of 23. So I didn't really have any sick or annual leave built up at the time that this happened. So fast forward to March of 24. My wife and I got married in February of 24. So we had a honeymoon cruise that was already booked and planned prior to the situation happening to me. So I go up to him after we had the meeting. I was just like, hey, Sheriff, when I got stabbed in the head, I exhausted all my annual and sick leaves. And just thinking maybe me mentioning this like, oh, yeah, man, I've been meaning to reach out to you. I'm sorry that happened to you. I just got busy, whatever, something like that. His exact words was, oh, okay, get with Chief Green and he's going to take care of it for you. That was it.
Hmm.
And
You
which is a
said
lot.
something interesting. You said something interesting. I need you to rewind. Sometimes I hear things, and and everything you hear is not necessarily true. That's why there's some things I say allegedly or whatever, because I keep in mind that things I hear about the sheriff's office, even though most of it turn out to be true, some of it may not be true. You know what I'm saying? I did hear something. I remember somebody telling me, and I guess I didn't pay any attention because I just thought it was exaggerated. But that there are meetings with age groups, like if you're this age, I'll meet with you. If you're this age, I'll meet with you. And it sounded so stupid, I just didn't even believe it. But you just said it, so obviously it's true. And
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and because what I heard was kind of bizarre. I mean, like, okay, you meet with the seniors this time, you meet with the people this age this time, and that's kind of skirting what we're taught with EEOC or whatever like that. I mean, if you meet with commanders, you meet with commanders. That's kind of weird, but it was interesting you said that because when I first heard it, I just thought it was so bizarre. I thought it was some exaggeration, but I guess not.
No, no, no. It was true. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
yeah. It was very
That's
true. And it was
interesting.
and when all it was a line of false brag on his on itself. The meeting was very, you know, it could have been an email, not even an email, a text message, and which he lied and said that nobody, murder is down, crime is down, and the 17-year-old was just killed on Christmas Eve. So it was it was a lie. It was before he got on the news and cried for crime being down.
Yeah. Jerome, you got anything to say, man?
When I take a look at this, I mean, obviously we're talking about leadership issues, but getting back to a little bit of what we were talking about with, you know, Floyd Garner and a whole bunch of other things. When you're tasked to do these type of jobs, when you have to put your hands on people, it's just not going to be pretty. So you're not going to go ahead, and I'm not going to be with any critical eye to tell you what you didn't or didn't do. That was correct. We all live and learn when we go there. You survived that, and
Amen.
that wasn't promised to you. And even taking a look at these staples that you had on your head, the only reason why you didn't feel that initially was because of adrenaline. That's the only reason why. Had it not been for that and you trying to go ahead and save your own life, what I'm disappointed in, and this is the point that I'm trying to get at, is that there wasn't additional time put on him, because that's obviously, as far as I'm concerned, aggravated assault, and I could even make a case for attempted murder.
How many stitches or staples did you have to get, young man?
If I'm not mistaken, it was from the picture. I think it was about 7. Some of them is at the top, 6. Yeah, about 6 or 7. And when they cleared me to come back to work, I actually still had the staples in my head.
How was that inmate handled from that moment on? Was there any special security protocol from him from that moment on, or was he just put right back in and just a charge thrown on him
So
and that's it?
as Walker stated, at this time when the situation had occurred, we did not have a hole. After this situation happened, we did finally have a hole. So he was placed in. At the time, it was House Unit 3, because those were the only doors that secured the facility, which was it used to be the women's unit. They ended up swapping them out and put them in House Unit 1 because, as I said before, all the other doors in the facility were not securing. So the only way that they could have a hole was by moving the women out, putting them in a unit that the doors did not work, and making House Unit 3 the hole. So he was placed in House Unit 3. I think it was approximately probably about 3 months or so, and he ended up actually getting put back in my unit. I was always working House Unit 5. This particular house unit, we did have a special section for certain individuals, and the first time that I saw him, like I actually gave him a hug because he was crying, like he was like man, he was just like, man, you ain't deserve that, man. Yada. He just was going on and on about this and that and other stuff, whatever. So I did give him. I was like, man, look, bro, I'm good. I said I'm fine, man. I said I didn't appreciate it, but I said I told him I wasn't mad at him. I did feel like that he was under the influence and that it wasn't his character, because prior to this situation, he had always been in my house unit before the situation happened, but he was placed, like
And
I said, he was placed in the hole for about 3 months or so.
I want to add to that. This hole that was created, which was House Unit 3 to start off, which was ran by a few of the GLSRT guys and Captain Grady, who was running the unit. The rules was by Captain Grady. I just want to say, just to still prove that you can run a safe jail through great leadership. And this one unit only, we still had the old locks. Every jail had the old locks, including this unit. And we was able to transform that inmate. to where he sat. I think they sat down there maybe 80 days. He didn't get high, not 180 days. He, didn't have access to K2. Um, he was sober 80 days. We took him from thinking he was running it to saying, yes, sir, and thank you for my tray. And to as you see, he went out to apologize to that officer when we did release him. But you think that was great and that worked. It did work, But this is the team that he got rid of. This is the floor he lets get out of control. And now there's multiple stabbings a day in the hole, which is I'm lost on how it happened.
So let me ask you this: do y'all once? Okay, I'm glad y'all hugged and made up and everything, but let me ask you this: has he ever been a problem anymore after that?
No, sir.
Do
Not
y'all
from
know?
like
Do
I
y'all know
said,
that for a fact?
Yeah, I
No.
do.
but
Yeah, we responded
from
to
my
all the
opinion.
calls, so.
Okay, and you said that no more violence from him to any other inmate or any other officer from that point on.
No, he was no, he stayed out of problem to just recently or maybe like right before I quit. I know he stabbed somebody real bad and got put back up on the hold, but he went maybe 6, 7, 8 months without 0 incidents.
And then he stabbed somebody.
And then he drained sent somebody to Grady actually.
Okay, so let me say this, and I'm not criticizing you for hugging and making up with the guy or whatever, but this is something that I want to make sure, and I hope that there are people in decision making things legally and everything that listen to this carefully. Had I been the sheriff when that happened, and had they not tried all this political stuff and made up something about the chair, I would have came down and I would have saw him. I wouldn't have to ask for him to be restrained because that would have been the protocol. He would have immediately been put in a restraint chair because he showed an act of violence. Now, interestingly, the people in my case said, well, if they're not violent at the time you put them in a restraint chair, they shouldn't be in there. So basically, they're trying to say that you could have put him in a chair while he was trying to stab you, but if he's not uncontrollably violent at that time, you shouldn't be in there, which we know is a bunch of craziness that they just made up because they wanted to put a charge. But when you take away these type of tools, when you don't restrain these people, when you don't put them in the special areas and 23-hour lockdown or whatever, when you try to collude and be nice to criminals, hey, he just stabbed you in the head, he didn't kill you, let's hug and kiss him and everything. Okay, that was a nice tender moment, but I knew I was going to get that answer. I knew he was going to eventually go and stab somebody else. So, to all the bleeding hearts out there that believe in hugging and kissing criminals and believing that, interestingly enough, every now and then I will interact with somebody on social media if I think it's interested enough to interact on. And most, and I'm talking about someone that has something negative to say. And interestingly, there was a young man that I interacted with today. I haven't heard back from him, but he said something to the effect that, okay, you answered the question why inmates have to face the wall, but why were we bullied by this? He called it the CERT team. It was actually the Scorpion unit, and he said something else. Why were we made to do with whatever? And my response to that young man, I hope he's listening. I hope he'll respond back. Is this? I said, I think you answered half of the question. You said when you were in the jail, you got out of jail, you weren't stabbed, you weren't killed. That's why we did all of that, not just to protect the staff, but to protect you. I said, remember, my job is to keep everybody safe, not to make everybody in jail happy. Okay. Two different things. I can't make everybody in jail happy. And I'm certainly not trying to make someone happy that tried to kill an officer. I'm glad y'all had that moment of forgiveness, but by not handling things the way it should be handled when people try to kill officers, another person was sent to Grady, and we're fortunate that person obviously didn't die or whatever like that. So anytime you see society coddle criminals, hey, you know what? You shouldn't face the wall. Hey, you shouldn't have to be in a restraint chair or whatever. We get 7 dead bodies. We could have had 8 if this other guy that just got stabbed last week died. But fortunately, it appears like he's going to survive. Right. And there's been some other stabbing this week. But coddling criminals and trying to make life easier for them has never resulted in them thanking the people who do that type of craziness, and they become better behaved inmates. All they do is go out and kill again, rob again, rape again, or whatever. Right. So I just want to make sure that's straight. Go ahead.
I want to add on to the facing the wall thing, and the, a lot of people had something to say about, the way they had to fold, tissue or blankets, and this another thing. With the facing the wall, if an inmate, if an officer, person of authority, give an inmate an order, say, hey, you need to face the wall, and if he refused that, if he refused something as simple as that, especially if he got a murder charge, something serious, don't you think he refused, the next thing, or don't touch an officer? But if you tell an inmate he's supposed to be facing the wall, and then you walk by, or you walk in this section where there's 1 versus 32 inmates, and somebody turn away and not facing the wall after you don't say face the wall, he's he's already telling you that's pre-attack indicator. He's ready. He's refusing your orders. He's doing what he ain't supposed to do, and especially if he turn his whole body around. And then for the tissue folding and everything else, criminals, murderers, and people, they've been living their way or not been told what to do in school, at their mom's house, and on the streets, and in other counties, and now in Clayton County. They've been living their life of doing what they want to do. They running things. They think they're some type of king, right? So you bring this person into a facility for taking somebody else's life that's not theirs. And right now what we're having is they're running the facility. They cover the camera. They get what they want. Well, you break that down. You break their ego down by telling them they have to follow these orders. And if you don't follow these orders, it'll be consequences at the littlest things, so that we don't get to an officer being stabbed in the back of the head. Cell inspection went on and your bed wasn't made up. If you handle it there and you're strict there, you won't have this officer stabbed in the back of the head. It worked because I done it. I'm at a jail now where it works. And then it was working under Sheriff Hill. It was 15 years or the time Sheriff was there, 0 people was killed. 0 people was stabbed. And then now, we got all these people stabbed, and people in this community think it's normal. Jails are supposed to be like this. This is every jail. Every time I talk to somebody, they say they think this is normal, or it's overpopulation, or it's lack of funding, which is untrue.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I hope what comes out of this show, and again, Latravian, I'm very glad you survived that, because when I look at all those staples in your head, and I can only imagine if if you had got a puncture wound somewhere to the body, somewhere vital, or to the neck, you might not be here on the show today. But I want to talk to especially the people in the judicial system. Please quit being dummies. Please protect these people. These people are here protecting us. And when you are more concerned about them defending themselves or how they defended themselves, you set up a situation where they'll continue to get injured, and where eventually one of them can lose their life. And that's the trajectory that we see in Clayton County now. It's just a matter of time before an officer or civilian loses their life at that jail the way it's going. And don't get me wrong, one life is not more valuable than another. No one should lose their life, not even an inmate. Because again, just like we discussed earlier, anyone can end up in jail with a traffic ticket or whatever like that. So to say, well, he's a criminal and he murdered someone and he got murdered. Okay, well, there's a lot of people in jail that are there for stuff like a traffic ticket. They're not so-called criminals. And not to mention people who are there because people make up charges on them like they did with me. So think about what you're doing when you put these type of restrictions on officers. We're not saying that officers should be allowed to do whatever they want. I didn't allow them to do whatever they want. I think I fired more people than any sheriff in the history of the sheriff's office. And a lot of it had to do with use of force issues, but not when they're trying to defend themselves and not trying to dot every I, cross every T. Well, I know the guy was trying to crush your testicles, but you hit him in the head and you shouldn't hit him in the head. These are the type of dummies that we've got to get out of command positions and got to get out of judicial system, because they're going to cause more high crime and more officers to get hurt.
Right. Well, I know we do, especially I just want for Clayton County, people, or let's just say counties are, heavily black populated. These, we keep electing, like I say, we vote for a frog if it ran for sheriff or ran for county commissioner. These folks that thinking, coming in being soft is the answer. Or we're not locking, like you said, they're not locking people up every day. Or the goal of the Cobra unit wasn't to go out and get people going 10 over. They're going after serious murderers that have disregard for human life, and they don't care about a Axon camera. They don't care about any jurisdiction. They don't care about any of that. So they make these laws. They put more handcuffs on the officer than they're doing the criminals. Jurisdiction on the officer. The officer can't go here. The officer got to have this. They drop more charges on the officers than they are getting conviction rates on people with a proven track record. And then you wonder why the murder rate is so high here in Clayton County and Fulton County. True crime fighters, people that were tough inside of these counties, from the DAs to the sheriffs to the police chiefs, and crime will go down. But when we keep electing people that like we got, this is going to continue to happen.
I agree. And let me say this, and I'll let Jerome and Latravian conclude this thing. There's this perception out there, about hey, you're mean or whatever. I hope we have a realistic view of what officers are dealing with. You're expecting these officers to deal with killers, robbers, and talk to them like Barney talks to kids. And if any of these people in the judicial system or some of them in command positions, I hope you understand that the type of guys that go out and do stuff like this, you can't go talk to them like you're Barney. It's not I love you, you love me, and with a great big hug and kiss to you and me. They don't understand that. So don't be
Right.
so critical in these offices when they have to. Now, if it's one thing if they're talking to a senior citizen, of course, I think you got to have discretion. But when you send them to catch killers, when you send them to catch people who rape, rob, and murder, they can't just go up and start hugging people and everything is going to be okay. And we have to understand that. I mean, I think my case is a good example. I think I came under criticism for telling one of the guys that was going to restraint you that he sounded like a jackass. Well, guess what? He did. He knocked the 80-year-old woman who was in a wheelchair roller off of it and beat up her 60-year-old daughter. And I want the people to think about that, because a lot of people involved in my case, that's about the age they are now or approaching. Suppose that was you and your grandmother in a store. And I don't know what you expect me to talk to people like that and tell them, hey, look, next time, give me a hug, man. Don't beat up old ladies anymore. We need to be realistic of what it takes to deal with criminals. And when you
Right.
put these type of restrictions on people and you got all the cops making them think, and this is no dig on you, Latravian, thinking that they need to go hug people who trying to kill them and kill other people. It's unrealistic, and we're going to end up with more people stabbed and killed, just like the guy that tried to kill him tried to kill somebody else. So I hope we can get you to come out of La La Land if we can't replace you, because you're causing crime not just in the jail but on the streets to go worse with that type of silliness. All of the people that you help, this is how they're thanking you. All the people that don't have to be in a restraint chair no more, this is how they thanking you, by stabbing officers, stabbing other inmates. They're not, none of them are saying, hey, thank you. Thank you. We don't have to
Right.
do this anymore. We're going to be good guys now. And you're not only putting officers' lives in danger, you're not only putting these other people's lives in danger, you're putting your life in danger, because you might be in a grocery store one day and run across one of these fools, and they might try and beat your 80-year-old grandmother. So something to think about. Jerome, Latravia, we got about what 7 more minutes. Why don't y'all open the doors to the church and bring this thing home?
I wanted to piggyback off of what you were saying about the dummies. So after I got stabbed, I was rushed to Southern Regional. Um, as I'm at Southern, after I got the staples in my head, I know you were speaking on how they was more worried about the chokehold. So I never got a chance to elaborate on that. So as I'm sitting in there with my wife, well, at the time my fiance, the investigators came in and they was just asking me questions about the maneuver, the technique that I used to restrain the inmate. And after we had got done the interview or whatever, the words that they spoke to me was, when you go to court, refrain from using the word chokehold and say real restraint instead. And so I'm just asking questions like, what does it matter? It's a life or death situation. I don't care if it was real restraint or chokehold, as you said, like the other guy who's had his testicles or his genitals being squeezed, he hit him in the head. Like, it's a situation where you have to get out of there and you have to do what you need to do to get out of it. And these people that's behind these in these situations that don't know anything about what's going on, trying to make decisions or determinations on how we're supposed to handle it. I just really don't agree, and I don't understand it. I would really
Is
love to see one of them in the situation that I was in.
Right.
I guarantee you they couldn't handle it and they probably would have got stabbed to death. And just be fortunate you weren't someone they were targeting. If you weren't the elected sheriff or someone they wanted to get, they would indict you for that despite what happened and tell a crazy
Right.
story to a grand jury like what they did with me. These are the type of folks we got. Well, not the type of folks, the type of dummies we got in power that we need to get out or find ways to stop them from being able to do stuff like that. So you're
Right.
you're you're absolutely right about that. Demo Ward, here's a man that tried to kill you. You got seven what staples. He could have killed you, and they're more worried about him. Oh my God, you choked a man that was trying to kill you with a knife. That's the type of craziness law enforcement is dealing with. And we want these people to protect us, but we've also got to protect. If we can't protect them, or the prosecutors and judicial system targets them just to get a spot on the 6 o'clock news or just to get a position, everybody's life is in danger. Jerome,
My thoughts about the matter is that I gave people choices. I, the moment I let them know, if you put your hands on me, there's going to be three things that are going to happen. You're either going to go to jail, you're going to go to the hospital, or you're going to be in a pine box. It's your choice.
stop right there. Now, according to these folks we dealing with here, they're gonna probably be trying to indict you because
Right.
they're more concerned with the guy trying to hurt you than you. But keep going.
But if you know the law, and the moment they put their hands on you, that's their choice. And, over the course of my career, I guess I've been sued over $106 million. Um, I
They
think
actually
that
paid it out, or they tried to get that. They paid 106 million, or they tried. Oh, that's what they were
that's
trying to
what they
get.
tried. They only
Yeah,
got $76 out of
good.
that. And the reason by that is because I stood on what the law told me that I could do. And of course, you got to be a creative writer, right? But what I'm saying all to this is that the guy put you in the hospital. That was a hospital detail right then and there. It would have, and you would have had backing on top of that, and unfortunately, it's just sad the way things are being done now. And this is the tragedy, and it's going to beget more tragedy, as my brother just said, and everybody on this chat knows, and everybody who's listening to this knows. So an officer's going to get killed. I mean, we could bet on that.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. At these conditions keep on going that way. So,
Hey, I wanna answer one question that's for the next couple minutes we got. Just a real quick question.
Sure.
Somebody keep asking why all the cars, why all the rank. You know, when people referring to cars, they're talking about the pink cars and the wrap cars,
oh,
which
those,
is
yeah.
only cost a couple dollars more than the regular Dodge Charger. That's not the real problem. The real problem is the cars you don't see when you go on the Sally Port. Of the Hellcat, the $100,000 Wagoneer, the nice Ford F-150, the Chief, all these expensive cars. It's not drug seized. That's tax dollars bought. And you ask why? Because a thief is always going to be a thief. You hand a thief a credit card or a car with $55 million. That's what they're going to do. They're going to spend it and then go back in front of the board and ask for 14 million more, and use your kids as a target to get the more money. The more people doubt he think he gonna get the money. So the rank is needed that he got, but the people with the experience and the people that done it need to be there, and they're not there. So if you asking why the cars, go look, do open record request, and look at what your sheriff, your chief, and your colonel is driving. The pink car, the breast cancer car, and the LGB car, and the other cars are not the real problem. The problem is the Wagoneers and the Hellcats that he's driving at. They're not seized from asset forfeiture.
Stop 1 second, and I mean nothing by this. No disrespect to the LBGT community, if I said that correctly, but there's an LGBT car now.
Yeah. I think I think so. I think it was a car. It was a Pride car for the month of Pride. It's a
Okay.
couple of them. You got an HIV one, a domestic violence one. When which I ain't start on that, but yeah, it's a couple cars he does every
Okay, I
every month.
got you. Well, that's you know what, probably another show for another time we could just do on that. One thing for sure, the priority is crime. And don't get me wrong, we want everybody. My mother had a bout with breast cancer, so I'm sensitive to that. But I'm not sure how a breast cancer card helps lower the crime rate
Right.
or deals with crime. And I think the explanation was we're trying to bring awareness to HIV, to breast cancer. Well, that may be the case, but we need to bring awareness to all the people getting killed and stabbed at the jail. Let's bring awareness of what's going on to what the job entails, because I'm sure the health department is doing a great job bringing awareness to that other stuff. Because if
Right.
you ain't got the cure to it, you being aware, bringing aware to it and saying help it. We need a cure for those things, not awareness. But there is a cure for what's going on in that jail, and
Right.
that's what needs to be happening. So, all right, Jerome, can you close us out? And hey,
Yeah,
Latrivia, it's great to have you. And let me say this
Thank you
before you
for
go,
having me,
Jerome.
sir.
Yeah, we're offering a platform. We promise we're keeping our promise. The sheriff's office, of course, is not putting out what's happening at the jail. They didn't release the stabbings that took place this week. And of course, the local media is not putting out the travesty that's going on there as well. But fortunately, social media, we don't need them. We can give people a platform to come and tell their story. There's a lot of people we haven't even gotten. I got some former inmates that would like to come on, and we're giving people a platform to talk about what has happened. Latravian reached out, and of course, we made that promise, and we will give that platform for anyone that comes on that would like to discuss that matter there. I feel it's the least I could do since I did have a hand in helping this person get elected. So, with that being said, again, thank you, Latravian and Jerome. You close us out.
yeah. I just wanted to go ahead and tell everyone who's been on the chat and so on and so forth. Go ahead and subscribe, like, comment, seriously, because afterwards you don't really realize this, but for all those that continue to keep on commenting throughout the whole week, we're able to get other guests to come on. And I think that's important. So please go ahead and subscribe, comment, and like. And then without further ado, brother, we'll see you in a few more days doing our thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys, be safe
Absolutely.
out there.
All right, guys, thanks for coming on. Mike, you becoming a regular, man. Yeah, yeah. Jerome, you might have to find a position for this young man.
I might have
I'm
to.
ready.
He's
All
ready.
right.
All right.
All right. Y'all
Take
take
care,
care.
everyone.
All right.